Hey guys, I'm JC and today we're playing Kodama and Ishai. The goal of this deck is to gain massive value from Kodama's ability by playing powerful ETB effects and then blinking them for even more value. If this deck seems right up your alley, then make sure to stop by the channel where we have a deck tech discussing all of the included cards as well as the overall strategy. Let's see just how good this unknown blink deck can be. Okay guys, let's see who we're playing today. We have Animar, Soul of Elements, we have Teneb the Harvester, and finally we have Yidris, Maelstrom Wielder. Alright, let's have a look at our opening hand. I think it's quite keepable. We've got some ramp, we've got really great card draw, we have more than enough lands, and Teleportation Circle is going to allow us to start bouncing stuff and getting a lot from Kodama's trigger, so I think we can keep this. Yidris plays a land for turn, and now they cast an Elvish Mystic. But that's going to be it for them. We draw a Breeding Pool for turn. So let's just start by playing our fetch. We'll crack it. We'll put our Spara's Headquarters into play tapped, because I don't really want to get the Mystic Remora out just yet. I want to be able to get the most from its ability, and then we'll pass the turn. Animar plays their land for turn, a Cavern of Souls. They name Elemental. Now they start by casting a Mox Diamond, so they will have to discard a land. We just see an island hit the graveyard, and that is going to be it for them. Teneb plays a land for turn, but they are just going to pass it from there. Yidris plays a tap land for turn and gains them 1 life. Next, they cast a Bloom Tender, and then they pass it on over to us. We draw a land for turn. So let's start by playing our Castle Garenbrig for turn. And I think now's the turn that we'll get down our Mystic Remora. I don't know how effective it's going to be against a lot of these decks. I don't think we're going to get too much from Animar, but I'm a little unsure of Teneb and Yidris, depending on how they're built. But because we don't have heaps going on in our hand, I think we'll just put it out there and we'll see what we get out of it. What we really hope here is that we actually draw into some more ramp. Provided that does resolve, of course, Animar could counter it here. But they let it through, and that is going to be our turn done. Animar starts by playing a fetch land for turn. They crack it right away. They put a shock land into play and they lose 2 life, so it comes into play untapped. Looks like we may see Animar come down here. And we do. Animar says it has protection from white and from black. Whenever you cast a creature spell, put a 1/1 counter on Animar, and creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each 1/1 counter on Animar. So already we have a clock on the game because Animar can start to get out of hand pretty quickly, depending on what else is in their hand. So let's just hope that our fishy starts drawing us a few cards. And that is it for the Animar player. But once again, they just pass the turn there. Yidris plays their land for turn. Now they cast a Throes of Chaos. That does trigger our Mystic Remora, so we'll be able to draw a card. We draw an Agent of Treachery. That's a nice hit. Now Throes of Chaos will cascade. So we might get lucky here and they hit another non-creature spell. And they do, they hit an Edge of Autumn, that triggers our Mystic Remora. So we'll draw yet another card. So I was a little concerned there that Fishy wasn't going to actually pay for itself, but it looks like it already has, because we're probably going to let it go next turn. Let's see what we draw here, just another land. Edge of Autumn says if you control 4 or fewer lands, search your library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle, and you can cycle it by sacking a land. Now Throes of Chaos will resolve, it just has Cascade and Retrace. So they can cast it from their graveyard by discarding a land card in addition to paying its other costs. And that is going to be it for the Yidris player. So Mystic Remora triggers on our upkeep. We'll actually let it go here because I want to get down Llanowar Visionary and then hopefully Teleportation Circle. Start getting some of that sweet blink value. We draw a land for turn. So we're certainly going to have a lot of lands to play once we finally get Kodama out. Start by playing our Breeding Pool. We'll lose 2 life so it comes into play untapped. And let's get down our Llanowar Visionary. When it ETBs, it draws us a card. And we get ourselves a Mystic Reflection, probably one of the spiciest cards in the deck, just with the amount of sheer silliness it can actually get up to. But with that, we'll actually pass the turn. The one great thing with Mystic Reflection is if the Animar player actually plays out some big nasty bomb, hopefully something like an Eldrazi, we may be able to make multiple copies of it, so we'll see if that ends up being the case. Now, on our cleanup step, we're going to have to get rid of a card here, we'll get rid of one of the lands. We're going to try to hold on to our fetch lands because they work very well with Kodama. And now we move to the Animar player's turn. They start by playing a fetch land for turn. They crack it. They put a shock land into play. But they don't lose the 2 life, so it comes into play tapped. Next, they cast Elvish Pioneer. That does trigger Animar, so it gets a 1/1 counter. When Pioneer ETBs, you may put a basic land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. Its trigger goes onto the stack. And they put a basic island into play tapped. Next, they cast Glistening Elf. That triggers Animar again. It's just a 1/1 with Infect. Now they move to combat. Let's see where Animar heads towards. Hopefully not us. It looks like they're targeting the Yidris player. Damage goes through. And that is it for Animar. Teneb plays a land for turn. And they play an Awakening Zone. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may create a 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature token. It has sack this creature, add colorless. And that is it for them. Yidris starts by casting Iron Mirror. It looks like at the moment they are missing black to be able to cast Yidris. Next, they cast Violent Outburst, which does have Cascade, and creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. Let's see what they hit off their Cascade. Looks like we see an Abundant Growth. When Abundant Growth enters the battlefield, draw a card. An enchanted land has tap, add 1 mana of any color. When it ETBs, they draw a card. Now they move to combat. They just decide to pass straight through combat. And that is it for them. We draw Nature's Law for turn. Alright, so we have 2 real options here for ourselves. We can try to cast Kodama because Castle Garenbrig is going to allow us to be able to do that. But that does mean that we don't get any triggers off of Kodama. So we'd be going around a full turn exposing Kodama to removal. I guess the question is how much of a chance do we think there is that our opponents are going to be fearful of Kodama and try to actually remove it? Alternatively, we can also just try to get down Teleportation Circle this turn, flick a Llanowar Visionary just to draw an extra card, and then set up for next turn with Kodama. I think I'll play it safe here and just give it one more turn before we get down Kodama because I really want to make sure we get the value out of him. At least if he does get removed when we play him next turn, we'll be able to put down a few lands and be able to just cast him again next turn. So let's start by playing our Verdant Catacombs. Let's crack that. We'll find our Temple Garden and put it into play untapped. Next, we're going to cast Nature's Law. We'll just put a Snow-Covered Forest into play. And finally, we'll cast our Teleportation Circle. That goes through. So now we'll move to our end step. Teleportation Circle triggers. We'll target our Llanowar Visionary. And let's draw ourselves a card. And now we move to the Animar player's turn. Animar starts by casting Nihilea, God of the Hunt. That does trigger Animar, so it gets another 1/1 counter. Indestructible, as long as your devotion to green is less than 5, Nihilea isn't a creature. Other creatures you control have trample, very scary with Animar, and for 4 mana, target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So our Llanowar Visionary looking a little less good, but hopefully Yidris is still going to be attracting the attention of Animar. Let's hope they're not too scared by our Teleportation Circle. Now they move to combat. Let's see where they go. And they're still going towards Yidris, thankfully. So our enchantment wasn't enough to get them scared just yet. They're also sending their infect creature towards Teneb. That's where our blockers definitely come in handy here. And that's going to be all for their attackers. Yidris takes all the damage. And that is it for the Animar player. On Teneb's upkeep, their Awakening Zone does trigger. They're going to make an Eldrazi spawn. Next, they play a land for turn. Now they cast Gave, Guru of Spores. Gave ETBs with 5/1/1 counters on it. You can pay 1, remove a 1/1 counter from a creature you control, create a 1/1 green sapling creature token. You can also pay 1 and sack a creature to put a 1/1 counter on target creature. And that is it for them. Alright, well with their colors fixed now, we should see Yidris come down this turn, unless the Yidris player has other plans. And we do. Yidris has Trample. Whenever Yidris deals combat damage to a player, as you cast spells from your hand this turn, they gain Cascade. A very powerful ability. Well, I'm very happy that we have Agent of Treachery in our hand, because both Yidris and Animar can actually help our game plan if we get them on our side of the board. Next, they play a bounce land for turn. So they will have to return a land they control to their hand. After that, they play Explore. You may play an additional land this turn and draw a card. They play themselves a Terramorphic Expanse. They sack it straight away. And that is going to be it for their turn. We draw Kodama's Reach for turn. Okay, well things are starting to get a little scary out there. So our plan this turn was to get down Kodama. But now I'm actually starting to think it might actually be better to try to resolve our Agent of Treachery. That way this turn we can actually steal Yidris and Animar as well. 2 powerful creatures that can actually definitely help our game plan like I mentioned earlier. The only thing that's making me hesitate a little bit is we do have the Animar player with open mana, notably blue mana as well. They do only have 2 cards in hand. And while there is every chance that it could be a generic counterspell, it could also just be a non-creature spell. Something like a Fierce Guardianship or a Negate, which definitely Agent of Treachery is going to get around. As much as I wouldn't mind giving the Animar player another turn, I am a little worried about the Yidris player and what they could actually possibly cascade into. Once that value train starts going, it does get pretty hard to stop. So I think we might actually have to risk trying to resolve our Agent of Treachery here. So let's play our Prismatic Vista for turn. Let's crack that straight away. We'll find ourselves a Snow-Covered Forest. And let's see if we can resolve our Agent of Treachery. It looks like Animar does have a response here. And unfortunately, they do have the hard counter. They cast Dissipate, counter target spell. If that spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. So even worse for us in that we can't actually get it back. So that's a little unfortunate. So from there, we're just going to have to move to our end step. We'll draw another card from our Llanowar Visionary. And we just get ourselves another land. All right, well, from here, it looks like plan B is going to have to probably be wait for the Animar player to play out something big and scary, and then cast our Mystic Reflection, hopefully get a few creatures out, and make some copies of it. That is until we hopefully draw into something better with our Llanowar Visionary, because it's our only source of card draw at the moment. Now on Animar's turn, it looks like they just move straight to combat. This time they send Animar towards Teneb, so thankfully the Agent of Treachery hasn't brought their wrath down upon us. That's all they're sending in. Let's see if they do block with their Garv. Of course, they are holding up Nylea, so they can pump up their Animar if they need to. It looks like Teneb just lets the damage through. Next, Animar casts a Sakashima of 1,000 Faces. That does trigger Animar, adding another 1/1 counter. You may have Sakashima ETB as a copy of another creature you control, except it has Sakashima of 1,000 Faces other abilities, and the legend rule doesn't apply to permanents you control. Looks like we're seeing another Animar come down here, and that is the case. Now, one big saving grace at the moment is the Animar player is only down to 1 card in hand, so without any card advantage on board, that at least buys us a little bit of time, especially while Animar isn't coming our way. And that is it for their turn. Awakening Zone triggers on Teneb's upkeep. They make an Eldrazi spawn. Next, they play a land for turn. They sack their Eldrazi, and now they cast their commander, Teneb the Harvester. Flying, whenever Teneb deals combat damage to a player, you may pay 3. If you do, put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. That resolves. Now they move to combat. Let's see if they attack. Likely they stay back here just due to the big bodies that are on the board. And they do. And with that, that is their turn done. Alright, well, Yidris does get to untap here, so let's see just how far they go. Let's see how much value they get from their commander this turn. 5 cards in hand, that's not a good sign for us. Of course, one of them does get actually played as a land this turn. Now they move to combat. Unfortunately, I think Yidris is going to be coming our way. And that is the case. We won't block here. So we're going to take 5 damage, notably 5 commander damage. That triggers Yidris now. Next, they cast Seal of Primordium. That does have Cascade. Looks like they hit a Warlord's Fury. Creatures you control gain first strike until end of turn, draw a card. They cast that. Seal of Primordium says sacrifice it, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Which at the moment, between the Awakening Zone and our Teleportation Circle, it's likely that's probably going to be hit. Unless Yidris decides just to keep it back for something a little more threatening. Now they cast Voyage in Satire, which triggers Cascade. And they hit a Diligent Farmhand. 2 mana, sack it, search your library for a basic land card, put that card on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. If it's in your graveyard, effects from spells named Muscle Burst counted as a card named Muscle Burst. So they cast both of those spells. Now they cast Miri's Guile, which triggers Cascade. So they might hit nothing here unless they actually have a 0-drop, something like a Mana Crypt in their deck. It looks like they do have no 0-drops in their deck. Miri's Guile says at the beginning of your upkeep, you may look at the top 3 cards of your library, then put them back in any order. And that is it for their turn. We draw yet another land for turn. So I think now's the time to try to get down Kodama, so we can catch up to the rest of our opponents a little bit. Because we have had a relatively slow start here. So let's activate our Castle Garenbrig. And let's see if we can resolve Kodama. Looks like Animar passes priority. Let's hope Yidris does the same. And Kodama does resolve, thankfully. Next, let's play our Marsh Flats. That's going to trigger Kodama. We'll put our Arid Mesa into play. Now we'll crack our Arid Mesa. We'll put our Hallowed Fountain into play. We'll pay the 2 life so it comes into play untapped. That triggers Kodama once again. Already getting some good value from him as soon as he comes down. Let's put our planes into play. Now let's cast our Glasspool Mimic. Because we want to try to draw a few more cards here. Especially because we do have Teleportation Circle, which we can use at our end step. So it may have taken us a little bit of time, but our engines are online now. Not as crazy as they can be, but they're certainly starting to get together. So we'll copy Llanowar Visionary. We'll put Kodama's trigger on the stack first, making sure we draw the card before we actually try to resolve that. We just get ourselves a land. Now with the Kodama trigger, we'll put Sakura Tribe Elder into play. That at least gives us a blocker. Now I think we'll just move to our end step. Teleportation Circle triggers. We'll target our original Llanowar Visionary. Let's hope we get a decent draw here. Kodama and Llanowar Visionary both trigger. We just unfortunately get ourselves a Farseek. All the ramp in the world, but no action, so we'll just put our land into play. And that's going to be our turn done. Animar starts by casting Peregrine Drake, which triggers both their Animars. It's got flying, and when Peregrine Drake ETBs, untap up to 5 lands. Mana definitely isn't their problem at the moment. It's card advantage they need. So let's just hope that the one card they have remaining in their hand isn't anything too spicy. Looks like we do have a response from Yidris here though. And they cast Gruul Charm. Gruul Charm deals 3 damage to each creature with flying. So I'm not sure if they actually cast that at the right time because Peregrine Drake isn't actually going to be on the battlefield when that resolves. I just checked chat and it looks like they actually realized that they didn't cast it at the right time there. So they've decided to shame scoop their own words. I don't know whether I'm missing something, but it doesn't look like it's an instant win here. And after that, they cast Cloudstone Curio. So I don't know what our other opponent was doing. They must have been able to read into the future to be able to see that they had an infinite combo available to them. Cloudstone Curio says, whenever a non-artifact permanent ETB is under your control, you may return another permanent you control that shares a permanent type with it to its owner's hand. Now, the one saving grace is it does mean they don't win this turn, but next turn they may be able to, depending on what they actually draw into. It looks like Animar's going towards Teneb, and Nylea's coming our way. They also send their other Animar towards the Teneb player. We're actually going to let the damage through. That knocks us down to 19, and that is it for the Animar player. So we may have only one turn left on the game, depending on what happens next. Now, Awakening Zone does trigger on Teneb's upkeep. They play a land for turn. Now they start by casting Harmonize, draw 3 cards. And it looks like the Teneb player actually scoops up there as well, so it looks like they didn't have any answers, and it's up to us to try to be able to do something. Now we do draw an Acidic Slime for turn, which is actually the perfect answer that we needed. So hopefully we're not out of this game yet, and we may be able to just turn it around. Let's see. So let's start by first casting Kodama's Reach. We'll get ourselves an island and a forest here. We'll put the island into play tapped. That's going to trigger Kodama. So we'll put our forest into play. Next we'll cast our Farseek. We'll just get a basic island. That triggers Kodama, though we won't be able to put anything into play. Next, we're going to cast our Acidic Slime. That goes through. So we'll use our Acidic Slime to target the Cloudstone Curio. That goes down. Our Kodama triggers, but we won't be able to use it. Then we'll pass straight through combat because I want to keep our creatures back as blockers. We'll move to our end step. Teleportation Circle triggers. I'm going to target our Llanowar Visionary. Now when it ETBs, I'm going to have it come in as a copy of Acidic Slime, so we have 2 good blockers. Just take out their breeding pool here, take them off their blue mana as much as we can. They just float a green mana in response. And now we move to the Animar player's turn. Let's see if they play the one card they drew. Looks like they start by just moving straight to combat. Looks like they attack with their Drake in the air. And that seems to be it. Okay, so it looks like our Death Touches are definitely doing a good job. Now we can block with Kodama here, but of course they'll be able to pump with their Nylea. So we'll just let the damage through. Though no doubt they probably will pump up here. But it looks like they don't, so we just go down to 17. But that is going to be it for their turn. Alright, let's keep our fingers crossed for a good draw here. One of our big value creatures, hopefully. Okay, Cloud Blazer is actually pretty good. They are holding 1 card in hand. It could be a counter spell, but if they're going to use it here, they're going to use it here. We definitely need to start drawing cards, and Cloud Blazer is going to help us a lot. So let's see if we can actually get that to resolve. Okay, they don't respond to that, so we have 2 triggers that go on the stack. So put Kodama at the bottom first, Cloud Blazer at the top. Let's draw 2 cards, and importantly, gain 2 life. Okay, we draw a Thorn Mammoth and a Field of the Dead, so this game is starting to turn around in our favor. Let's put the Field of the Dead into play. That's going to trigger Field of the Dead, so it makes us a 2/2 zombie. That triggers Kodama once again, but we have no lands to put into play. Alright, well next step is to try to see if we can resolve this Thorn Mammoth and start fighting some of our opponent's creatures. Okay, that one ends up resolving as well. So because our opponent does have the ability to actually pump up their creatures here, it's really going to be anything above a 1/1. They're going to be able to actually kill our Thorn Mammoth, which we don't want, so it'll have to be either the Glistener Elf or the Elvish Pioneer. I think it's actually going to be the Pioneer, just because Infect is going to give the Thorn Mammoth a -1/-1 counter. Triggers Kodama, we have nothing to put into play. Now, because the Pioneer is gone, that does actually make Nylea an enchantment, so they no longer have that as a blocker. I don't think we're ready to go to combat just yet, so we're just going to move to our end step now. That's going to trigger our Teleportation Circle. We'll actually target Cloud Blazer here. We need to draw more cards, keep the pressure up. We'll choose not to fight with the Thorn Mammoth. Let's see what we draw off our Cloud Blazer. Oh, Karuga and Avenger of Zendikar. Okay, there we go. Let's draw ourselves a lot of cards now. We're going to put Karuga into play. Our opponent won't be able to counter it here, so we're going to get the trigger regardless. This is what I love about playing this Kodama deck, is you can sneak the things in that you really want to. So So now that we know we're actually going to be drawing a lot of cards, I think I'm fine to actually fight the Glistener Elf here. And look at that hand refill. It's bloody beautiful. Let's see if they decide to pump their elf. No, they just decide to let it go. So now we move to our end step. We do have to discard 2 cards here. I think we can actually get rid of our Topiary Stomper and our Tatyova. Now we move to the Animar player's turn. They have 2 cards in hand. They start by casting a Grove Rumbler that triggers Animar twice. It has Trample. Whenever a land ETBs under your control, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. And it can't be countered. I think we're fine to let that through. Next, our opponent casts Vesuvan Doppelganger that triggers Animar twice. You may have it ETB as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it doesn't copy that creature's color, and it has, at the beginning of your upkeep, you may have this creature become a copy of target creature, except it doesn't copy that creature's color, and it has this ability. It does trigger Animar twice. We'll allow them to get the counters first. Now the question is here, do we want our opponents to actually be able to have this? If they take one of our acidic slimes, they could certainly destroy something like Field of the Dead. They could take a Thorn Mammoth, that would also help them fight some of our creatures. Even a Karuga would actually draw them quite a few cards, which could be pretty dangerous as well. Now I really wanted to hold on to Mystic Reflection here to be able to use on our Avenger of Zendikar, but that might be a little bit too greedy. So I think we'll actually have to use our Mystic Reflection here on the zombie token. So let's respond. Choose the zombie. They have no cards in hand, so they won't be able to respond to this. So now that Vesuvan Doppelganger will come in as a zombie token. There's not much else for our opponent to do now but move to combat, so let's see if they're game to actually send their Animar in. And I'm really only worried about the Commander Animar. If they do send it in here, we'll definitely put one of our Death Touches in front of it to take it out. So we are in combat now. Yep, they do decide to send in both their Animars and Peregrine Drake as well. Alright, well, let's put one Acidic Slime in front of the original Animar. We'll put our other Acidic Slime in front of the other Animar. And we'll use our Kodama to block Peregrine Drake. So we lose both of our Acidic Slimes. Our opponent loses both their Animars and Peregrine Drake. Our Kodama survives. They move to their end step. Let's sacrifice our Sakura Tribe Elder. Put an island into play. That's going to trigger Kodama and Field of the Dead. So we'll make a zombie. And that actually causes our opponent to scoop it up there. Alright guys, that was quite a game. Let's go to the review and discuss what happened. So we were off to an admittedly slow start this game, but we had some good engine pieces out, and once Kodama hit the board, it didn't take long for us to catch up. We also got pretty lucky in drawing into the removal piece we needed to stop the Animar player from gaining infinite mana and winning the game on the spot. Now once that threat was removed, Kodama had a real chance to shine, especially in combination with our teleportation circle. Being able to blink our card draw sources helped us get ahead of the Animar player and really demonstrated the true power of Kodama, that is, gaining card advantage and cheating mana costs all at once. Once you have Kodama out with a card advantage engine and a blink source, the value they can generate together can be hard to beat. Well, that's it from me today. I hope you enjoyed seeing the potential that Kodama has as a blink deck, and I also hope that it inspired some of you to give it a try yourselves. Until next time, guys.